All right, so I think people are going to be surprised, Emory, by your number one X receiver. I know I certainly was a little bit, and that is Mike Wilson from Stanford. Not a guy that people are talking about a whole lot.
Yeah, and this is we go into the scouting room. You got to put an asterisk by Michael Wilson because it depends on if he's healthy, right? That's the big caveat because when he's healthy, he is phenomenal. Fluid route runner, can get in and out of his breaks, can win short, can win intermediate, can win deep down the field, does all those things you want your receiver to do, can win high above the rim, someone that can win with speed. He's perfect for today's game and could be an excellent receiver, but the injuries have pegged him or plagued him, I'm sorry, at Stanford. But if the Senior Bowl is of any indication, and if he can stay healthy, the asterisk, this guy is legit. Now, my number 2X is Dontavian Wicks from Virginia. Big fan of what he did at UVA. He's a big physical guy, plays with that dog mentality that I like.
Was that guy like number 99 or something, or 98 or something
Yeah,
crazy?
no, he was number 0.
Okay.
And he is someone that had a fantastic Senior Bowl, but he wins rather well at all levels of the field. He's good, and so people, I'm gonna give you 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So third, I have Xavier Hutchinson of Iowa State. Big fan of him. He's another one that could win at all levels of the field, plays a good fluid game. And number 4, Antoine Green. This is a surprise from North
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
I was shocked to see how well his tape was because I got to his tape before I got to Josh Downs. I was like, man, this dude over here is nice. He's good. And so those are my top 4 X's.
Interesting. Okay. Let's move on to the flanker position. Before we move on to your flanker, I do want to make sure people know with March Madness going on, especially my Princeton Tigers, that right now you can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with code Ross, and right now new customers can bet $5 on any pregame money line bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. That's only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code Ross. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. You can see the show notes for details. All right, Emory, your number one flanker, the Z they call it.
And it's funny because we're going to start with the guy that has a Z in his first name, Zay Flowers. And Zay Flowers he's one of the players so far in this draft class that has gotten the ever so rare 90 grade. His tape was just undeniable. And it was just ridiculous. I comped him to Tyreek Hill with how explosive he is in all directions. Like everything he does is explosive. And I just couldn't get past that. No matter what game you watch, you're like, this dude has the juice and he can play on the outside. I don't care how tall he is or how big he is. I'm team size is not a skill, but Zay Flowers is tremendous. And I would definitely feel comfortable taking him in the first round if I needed a wide receiver because he's a tremendous game breaker. At number 2, Jordan Addison. Again, don't care how much he weighed. We knew he wasn't 205 pounds when you watched him out there at USC, and when you watched him at Pitt, you knew he was a slim guy. But he's someone that just is a silky smooth route runner that is very productive, good after the catch. Someone kind of like that Marvin Jones build where you can trust him on the outside. Very good receiver. Third, Trey Palmer out of Nebraska. Big fan of him, and I think he has the potential to be the OBJ of this class. Right? Because that's how explosive he is. That's how dynamic he is. Not a lot of people are talking about him because Nebraska's offense or whatnot, but he was a great punt returner at LSU, great kickoff returner, great with the ball in his hands, just like OBJ was. And I think this is someone that comes from that same mold and is cut from the same cloth. And lastly, at number 4, I have Quentin Johnson of TCU. Comped him to Torrey Smith. He's a big guy that has speed, maybe is a little bit one-dimensional in his route running in terms of how he runs. He's not as fluid, but he's a good receiver. He's going to be productive as a pro. He just may not be the, Randy Moss, everyone that was talking about him. But, Torrey Smith carved out a very long, nice career as a wide receiver too in the NFL. And I think that's where Johnston fits.
Yeah, that's interesting about Johnston. I love your rankings. I love that you've got different positions and different guys than other people do. How about the slot receivers?
Slot is number one is Jackson Smith-Njigba of Ohio State. Now he's someone that could probably play any one of these 3 or 4 positions. So you like that versatility. But he's a really good receiver, good after the catch. Someone that has the quick decision making and the quick shiftiness, as evident by his testing at the combine. But you could see that on the field with how quickly he's able to get in and out of his breaks. And my second one, I give you 2 for the slot, is Josh Downs. He's another one that's just explosively quick and dynamic. You give him an open field, it's like trying to cover. You drop a defender in the parking lot and try to say, "Hey, man, you got sideline to the hash or hash to hash." Like it's impossible to cover him with all that space, right? Because that's how dynamic and explosive he is. He puts a ton of strain on you as the defender out in the slot. And if you give him a 2-way go, forget about it. Just get the extra point team ready because it's going to be a touchdown.
All right, and then finally, the position that not that you invented, but that you discuss that other people don't as much, because in fairness, Emory, there is a difference between like your typical slot receiver, like a Wes Welker or the smaller, quicker guy, and then your bigger guy, which is essentially, by the way, what like Mike Gesicki and some of these guys are. They're really just inside receivers.
Exactly. You even look at someone like a Tyler Boyd, could be technically an inside guy, although I think Boyd can play all 4. But you look at where he wins consistently is constantly over the middle of the field and winning short and quick. Now, he could be a slot guy or he could be a big inside guy. And when we say big inside guy, it doesn't necessarily mean, you got to be 6'4", 225, because these 2 guys here, this is the Latrell Scott special. Fantastic coach at East Carolina. He's a receivers coach because 1 and 2 are East Carolina Pirates. Number 1, CJ Johnson, the big physical receiver, just a big fan of his physicality and how he blocks on the inside, which is another key part of being an inside receiver, not afraid to bang. And also a good job in a red zone, short red zone, where he's winning jump balls over the receiver, over the defensive back, high red zone where he's able to run that bang 8 and not be afraid of contact coming on, the opposite side. He's a good receiver, had a really good week at the NFLPA Bowl. And number 2, I've been a big fan of him since he signed with Latrell Scott at Norfolk State when he was the head coach down there, and that's Isaiah Winstead. We seen him go from Norfolk State to Akron or Toledo, I believe, and then he transferred to East Carolina, and he has that dog mentality that I love, man. If there was a George Pickens mentality award in this year's draft, it's Isaiah Winstead, because he plays like he is like the biggest, baddest, what on the block. And I'm a big fan of how he wins as well. I saw him down at the College Gridiron Showcase. So not only do you get Latrell Scott getting both of these guys highly ranked on his list because he's a fantastic coach, but you also get 2 guys that are very physical, very much alike, but one in different ways, or one in the same way at different positions at East Carolina, but both really went out there in the All-Star game circuit and had success.
Interesting to me, Emory, that you didn't mention either Tennessee guy, Jalen Hyatt or Cedric Tillman. If you watch Tennessee play this year, obviously those guys put up big numbers with Hendon Hooker. What do you think of those guys?
Well, Cedric Tillman, and here's the thing, Ross. If I was like everybody else and I just graded 15 guys, then all the guys you name would be on, in the list, But here's the problem. When you grade so many, now you got to rank and file. So people may think I don't like Tillman or I don't like Wyatt, but I really do. I have high grades on both. Tillman is my number 11 X receiver. Big fan of him. I actually have a higher grade on him than I do on Jalen Wyatt, because Tillman, to me, the injury, I think, knocked people off of him a little bit this year. But when you watch him play, he's a bona fide stud on the outside that can win short, intermediate, deep down the field, and has great ball tracking skills and was productive over the course of his career. Wyatt is my number 5 slot receiver. So I'm sorry, number 5 Z receiver. So he could play in the slot, but I think with that speed, that explosiveness, get him on the move, constantly keep him going, and just let him go. Now he could play slot or Z, but you like his explosiveness, you like his game breaking ability. You give him an open space, and again, it's you versus the goalpost in terms of how fast he's going to get down the field. And for your Princeton guy, Andre Isavas, Yosivas, he is someone.
Yasavas.
Listen, I heard like pronounced like 4 different times when
I'm pretty sure it's Andre Yasavas. I think the third time's a charm there.
Hey, you got it right, Yasavas. So he's my number 9 Z. The thing about him is obviously he's ridiculously athletic, explosive, dynamic, was fantastic at the Senior Bowl. But I feel like
was he fantastic at the Senior Bowl? I didn't know that.
He was fantastic. Like it was, you know how it was like watching him run routes in one-on-ones is like listening to jazz music. It was just smooth, just quiet, just in rhythm, and it was consistent. Like it was perfect. I just want to see him. Like what shocks you is that you watch him play, and then you look at his testing numbers. You're like, wait a minute. Like, damn, I didn't know he was that fast. I didn't know he was that explosive. Because he doesn't always play like that. You know, you want him to start to play up to his explosiveness or his, agility numbers. Once that starts to happen, sky's the limit. So he's going to be a fantastic pro. And Tyler Scott, Cincinnati. A lot of people talk about him. He's my number 14 slot receiver. I have a good grade on him. And another one that's just quick in all directions, like most slot guys tend to be. But for the most part, you want, when you grade slot, and again, we're going to see this until college football changes how it is. But with the advent of these 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, you're going to have a bunch of guys to grade. So, yes, Scott may be in some people's top 15, but when you grade so many doggone receivers, and you got to just trust the tape and just stack guys where they fall.
Check him out on social media like I do at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube, footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide will be out before you know it. It is interesting to hear your love for Zay Flowers because that was the guy that Greg Cosell was talking about on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast a couple weeks ago as well. So a lot of love for Zay Flowers out there. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. We will keep it rolling next week. We need to get into tight ends and O-line still on the offensive side of the ball. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.